Hi, everybody. Welcome to the latest episode of the Real Talk with Rick podcast. So in this episode, I bring in one of my bosses, one of the council members of the city of Eden Prairie, Brad Aho. This past summer, Brad chose not to file for re-election or run for city council again. His 4-year seat was up. He has served 4 4-year seats. Brad has been a city, or will have been a city council member for 16 years at the end of 2020. So I asked Brad to come on the podcast to share his experiences, share a little bit of some of his thoughts with his time on the Eden Prairie City Council and what's next for him. So here is my conversation with Eden Prairie City Council member Brad Aho. Thank you, Brad. Thank you so much for coming in. 16 years, at least after the end of December here, 16 years you will have been a part of the City Council, an elected member of the Eden Prairie City Council. And it's great to have you come in and share a little bit about your experiences and maybe what happens next. So, maybe taking a little bit of a step back, Brad, before we get to your time on the city council, we want to get to know you a little bit better. Where'd you grow up? Where are you originally from?
Well, I grew up in a suburb of Detroit, Michigan, called Redford Township. And I went to a high school called Redford Union High School, which acronym is RU High.
So you had a sweatshirt that said RU High?
I didn't, but unfortunately a lot of people could answer affirmatively to that question when I was in high school. Not me, but a lot of other people. Sure. So it was an interesting time.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, again, we were talking before we went on that this would have been in the in the 60s, late 60s into the 70s?
Well, so I graduated from high school in Minnesota, but I graduated in 77. So it was in the early 70s.
Sure. Yeah, early 70s, and then you came to Minnesota for the disco era. To be here when disco hit big.
Exactly.
Yeah. So then, that's a good question though. So what brought you to Minnesota then?
So my father got a job with a company in Minnesota called Time Savers, and my father's a mechanical engineer, and he got a sales job at Time Savers. We knew a lot of people in Minnesota. My mother grew up in Minnesota. She was born and raised in the Esco, Minnesota area.
Sure.
And so she grew up there, and she was actually born in the Twin Cities but grew up in Esco. And so we had cousins and all kinds of relatives here. So moving here, we had been here many times already, and so we knew a lot of people, and it was kind of a natural, easy move.
Sure. Okay. And then where'd you graduate high school from in Minnesota then?
From E.J. Cooper Senior High School in New Hope, Minnesota.
Sure.
And that's where I moved with my parents, and they still live in the same house in New Hope. So.
Okay. Yeah, they're close by. And then what did you pursue as an education in a career? Because as everyone knows, city council member, at least in Eden Prairie, is not a full-time job, a career.
Yeah, it's not a career.
Yeah.
Maybe sometimes full-time, sometimes more than full-time, but
absolutely.
It doesn't pay like a career.
No,
so, yes.
No.
But so I went to the University of Minnesota, and I got my degree in electrical engineering and pursued engineering. So I went to work for local companies in Minnesota in engineering. So I went to work for a company called Audio Research, where they made high-end esoteric consumer-grade audio equipment, but very, very high-end equipment, like amplifiers in the $50,000 range.
Wow.
And that was back in 82.
Okay, but you're saying consumer grade, so it's not for like music studios or production of it would be something that very wealthy people would buy for their home.
Yeah, real audiophile type people. Yeah. So like I say, I mean, it was all, at that time, it was all tube amplifier gear. And so we made preamps, amps, and things like that. And so just from a tone arm in the on a record player or a turntable to the speakers, we had about about $200,000 worth of equipment. You know, just speakers, tone arm, amplifier, preamplifier, all that. So very, very high-end equipment. But it was really interesting. I really enjoyed working in that area. I liked audio and stereo gear, and so it was a lot of fun.
Well, it's making a comeback. You could. I mean, I've got a turntable sitting in my living room, and that hasn't been the case since the late 70s or early 80s. So there are a lot of audiophiles that are still out there.
Oh yeah, and they don't like the digitized music, and has a different feel for it. I mean, our setup in that room, our critical listening room at Audio Research, you could actually had good visualization of the band or whoever was playing. I mean, you could picture, the saxophonist is right there, and the drummer is right there, and you could visualize where they were in the stage, and that was because of the quality of the source and also of the equipment.
Wow. Because I think there are a lot of people now that are just used to a compressed audio file.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's so different than true, analog audio equipment.
Well, I'd even argue my $300 to $400 turntable with the $300 speakers are better than some of the compressed music. But what you're talking about is pretty amazing.
Oh yeah, I mean we had $25,000 just the phonograph pickup, the pickup for the turntable. They were like $25,000 just for the needle, so to speak.
The needle made of diamond or something.
Well, yeah, they were diamond, but then just all the wow. I mean, it was really high end equipment. So it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, I digress. Yeah, because you were talking about your.
So I worked for I worked for a company called Control Data. And
very familiar to people in this area.
Yep. So I worked in the disk drive industry for a long time. Worked for a company called Magnetic Peripherals, which was a subsidiary of Control Data, which then spun off and became Seagate. A lot of people know who Seagate is. And so then I worked with a company called Magnetic Data, another disk drive industry. And then in '94, Bev and I formed our first startup company, and that was Information Technology Solutions, and that was an IT company. We did services and consulting and provided computers and networking for our customers.
Sure.
So.
And then, kind of getting. When did you move to Eden Prairie?
So I moved to Eden Prairie in 1991 when I was working for Magnetic Data. Magnetic Data was over in Golden Triangle.
Okay.
And there's no longer a company anymore. But so in 91 we moved here. I was closer to my job. Bev decided she was going to stay home and be with the kids, and ended up teaching them and at home and homeschooling our kids for a variety of reasons. But then it was closer for me to be here in Eden Prairie, and just the convenient location. Loved the community, and that brought us here to Eden Prairie.
Yeah, it'll be almost 30 years now. It'll
exactly.
be 30 years next year. So
hard to believe. Goes fast.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I've met your children, and obviously know Bev, so your family they have roots here. In fact, so much so that one of your children married a City of Eden Prairie employee at
exactly.
one time. Yeah.
And that's a whole nother great story unto itself.
Yeah, well, real quick, it's a good story. You okay telling that?
Sure,
right? It's a great story.
Yeah, I can tell it.
Yeah.
So our youngest daughter, Annie, was living at home, and she had been to college already and was kind of done with going to college, and was working, and in between undergrad and grad school, living at home. And she had a job at a local company, and she was on her way to work one snowy morning, and it was April Fool's Day, April 1st, and she stopped to scrape her window at the bottom of a hill going out of our neighborhood, and her brand new phone that she had just got the day before. It fell out of the car, and she didn't realize. She got to work and no phone. So she was really, really sad and disappointed. And then she gets a voicemail on that phone, and it's, "Hey, this is Josh. I found your phone. Do you want to meet me so we can get your phone?" And she ended up meeting Josh to get her phone, and she really, really liked him, and they started dating. And the way Josh found the phone was Josh was working for the city of Eden Prairie.
Yep.
And he was doing some snow plowing. He wasn't a regular snow plow driver, but was doing snow plow driving that day to help out. And he found the phone when he was plowing snow.
Yeah.
And so Annie saved that voicemail, and when they got married, she played the voicemail at her wedding.
That's awesome. And it's also, look at the city services of Eden Prairie, Brad. What does that say? I mean, we will find your phone, we'll bring you your phone, and if you want to start a relationship, that's a possibility as well.
Exactly.
Anything could happen. It's funny because obviously I met Josh and Annie, and I didn't work here when that all happened, but he worked in the utilities, and many of our utility people will drive the pickup trucks and do plowing in some of the smaller cul-de-sacs. But that's a great story.
Yeah, so it was really a good story and a great ending for both of them. And they live in Seattle now, and we were just in Seattle and visiting them because they had their second child, their first child, Afton. Their daughter Afton is just turned 3, and now they have a son, and his name is Mackinac Jack Pansky.
Cool.
And Mackinac comes from Michigan.
Mackinac Island.
Mackinac Bridge, exactly.
Yeah, that is really neat.
So
then, I don't know if that's the reason you thought, wow, this city operation they've got going is pretty neat. I should probably get more involved because my daughter is hooking up with a city employee person. But what was your entree and desire to be a local elected official? How'd that come about?
Well, Bev and I were both pretty involved politically with a lot of both local and state politics, and just in working to just help candidates, and not really in it for ourselves so much. And that was the time when Jan Mossman was on the city council, and she decided that she wasn't going to seek re-election. And a lot of our political friends said, well, there's this open seat. Why don't you consider running for that? So, I really liked the city of Eden Prairie. Thought, boy, it would really be great to give back and help out at the city level. And so I decided to seek election. And so there was 2 seats up for re-election. Was Sherry Butcher's seat, which she was running for a re-election, and Jan Mossman stepping down. So 1 open seat, and there was 9 of us total running. So it was a pretty busy election with 9 people running for 2 seats, and 1 as a
only
incumbent.
one incumbent, 8
Right.
8 people. I mean, not that the incumbent always wins, but it's at least 8 people new running for a spot that you won.
Exactly. So I was very fortunate. I won that seat. We had done a lot with the community, both in sports and high school events and band and things like that. So we knew a lot of people, and that really helped. And we loved the community, and it was a great way for me to give back.
Yeah, no, that's great. And what would you say? Because I know many people that are elected. Again, we joke about. I think if you look at the hours that you put in terms of resident phone calls and emails and communication and attending different events, I think it works out to about 8 cents an hour over the course of a year. So, like you said, depending on what's happening in the city at the time, it can be a full-time job. But what was kind of maybe a surprise to you, or what was different than what you expected when you came on board?
Well, I think there was a lot of things that were different. I think it's probably more time than I anticipated, especially campaigning. I mean, campaigning is more than full-time because you're never done when you're campaigning. You could always be making more phone calls, more door knocking, more literature dropping. There's always more tasks to do. So you're never really done when you're campaigning. So I think that was a little bit of a surprise. I had worked on a lot of campaigns, but it's different when you're running the campaign. costs. It's fairly expensive. It usually takes me about 2 years of city council pay to make up for the money that I've spent campaigning.
Sure.
So I don't even break even. So you talk about
Yeah.
8 cents an hour. I don't even break even usually until like the second year of a 4-year term. But no, I think there's it's. I think one of the things that was probably impressed with is that the people of Eden Prairie are so gracious and really, really good people, and I think I didn't really understand how that was, what the situation was until being elected. And there's a lot of really good people and a lot of people willing to help out, and I think that's what's really impressive about Eden Prairie.
Sure.
One of the things. Anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. We have an engaged, and we survey our residents, and they're engaged and they care about their city. So what's changed? 16 years. So how has the role itself changed, or maybe you within that role?
Well, I think obviously, as the more you learn about the city and the operations, and the more you understand what makes a city run, I think that really changes how you work as a leader, and I think also the ancillary projects and ancillary roles that you end up with as a city leader. So, for example, I'm chair of the 494 Corridor Commission. I'm chair of Southwest Transit, our award-winning bus service. I chaired the Flying Cloud Airport Joint Airport Zoning Board. I serve on MnDOT's 494 Expansion Project Policy Advisory Commission. And so I think all of those ancillary responsibilities and roles that you get put into really take on a much bigger role than just being a city council member. And so I think that's really, I never expected that, and I've kind of grown into that, and I really enjoy that aspect of it as well as just the city council aspect. But I think you can make a broader impact on the community at large, more than just Eden Prairie with those roles.
Yeah, in the region itself. So I think that you may have thought, many people do, that there's the council member that's on TV voting on whatever development project is happening or what ordinance is coming forward, but you just mentioned 4 or 5 different things that you've done that have a huge regional impact, and all of them are tied to Eden Prairie, but all that's been done with 494, and lately it's been 494 and 35W work, and before that it was 494 and 169. And we've had on this podcast the director of Southwest Transit, so he's been on to explain Chanhassen, Chaska, Carver, and Eden Prairie, the bus service that we have. That's huge. That's almost like a part-time job on top of a part-time job.
It really is, and it does take up a pretty significant amount of time and just thinking and effort and just part of your mindset to always keep those top of mind. And I've testified at the state, both Senate and House transportation committees and transportation finance committees, and gotten to know many of our local state elected officials, and developed a lot of relationships, and I think that's really positive and good, and we try to use that for the good of our residents here in Eden Prairie and beyond. And like you mentioned, 494 169 interchange. We spent a lot of effort, a lot of political capital to push that project forward, and I'll give kudos to Dave Lindahl here at the City of Eden Prairie. He did without him pushing that continually, I don't think that project would have happened. And so the 494 Corridor Commission, in combination with city staff and other staff as well, and other local elected officials, really were able to push that project and make it happen. But without that driving force, that wouldn't have happened. Same with 494 35W interchange. We've been pushing that for a long time, and without us continually pushing that, it wouldn't have happened. And now it's on the books. MnDOT's got it planned. We're very excited that that's going to be, at least phase one of that project will be completed in the next couple of years. In addition to that, they're going to be expanding 494, adding a lane both east and west between Highway 77 on the east and Highway 169 on the west. And so that's a really, really needed improvement for our transportation system. And because we've been pushing that happened.
Yeah.
So I can't take credit myself or just for our organization. It's a combination of everyone working together on it. But I think we were pivotal as an organization in making that happen.
Yeah.
So that's really one of the things that I really wanted to accomplish. Is something, being on the council is something that really would have lasting effects, not only for Eden Prairie but for the greater community.
Yeah,
so
that's great. Well, it's kind of staying on that theme, aside from some of that transportation work, what else do you consider, something that you're proud of, something that was an achievement as a council member?
Well, when I first was elected, one of the things I really wanted to see happen was Round Lake had become closed because of the quality of the water or lack thereof, for that matter. A lot of geese use that body of water, and also runoff from all the lawns and things like that had degraded the quality of the water. And when our kids were younger, they really enjoyed swimming in Round Lake. It was a free park, the city park that they could go and swim in and enjoy. And I was really disappointed that we could no longer use it as a swimming beach and a park to swim in, a body of water to swim in. So one of my goals when I was first elected was let's do something and improve water quality there. So working with city staff like Leslie Stovering and many others and community leaders and people that were knowledgeable about water and other city staff, we were able to put together a plan, and with the watershed district and everyone working together, and we actually reopened the lake for swimming again. And so that was a big accomplishment that I was really excited to have happen.
Well, it's a popular lake. I mean, we continue to invest in splash pads and other amenities in and around the beach too. So it's popular. And also. And I don't want to dwell on anything difficult, but it's not an easy job. And so, what would be some of when you think about what might be one of the worst days in the job? What are some of the tough challenges you think about, or?
Well, I think some of the tough things that I personally find are difficult is when. When you're trying to do the best thing you can for the community, and some people don't see that and they don't appreciate it. And for the most part, I think most people do appreciate it and are very gracious. But there was times when I took a lot of heat for supporting for example, supporting the expansion of the community center and the swimming, the aquatic center at the pool. A lot of people felt that we were spending too much money on that, and it was a lot of money. But I think it was something that was really important and very needed facility, especially when you look at our high school. Our high school doesn't have its own pool like many communities. The high school has a pool. We don't have one in our high school, but it is adjacent to the high school, so it really made sense to make that pool something that could be used as a facility for our kids to train in and to use competitively. Because what had happened is, if you recall, that the safety requirements and the depth requirements for pools changed. Yep. Someone got hurt in some pool somewhere in the United States. They changed all those requirements. Our pool no longer met those requirements for safety to allow people to start off the blocks jumping into the water. So we really needed to do something. Plus, our community center really needed to be updated. And so while it cost a lot of money, I think it was a really good investment. And if you look at today how well it's used, I think that is really a key sign that we made the right decision.
Yeah, I think that a lot of times you're in what could be considered a lose-lose situation where you have to vote on something and there's equal numbers of people on both sides of the issue, and someone will walk away disappointed no matter what. And, they use the example of, maybe the development, a high-rise building or a certain use building in a neighborhood that people wish would just be vacant land, but it's guided for some kind of future use, and you have to vote on that, and it's been thought out. But when you do that, there's a certain segment of people that are going to be disappointed. But I think what you've always done and the other council members have done is you could say maybe you don't agree with what happened, but you listened and people were able to be heard. And I think you've told me times where people have come back at a later date and said, I've changed my mind, or I have different thinking, or I'm more comfortable, or that was the heat of the moment. But that's tough. That's a tough job when you've got to kind of make that decision, and not every single person is happy.
Well, yes, I think that's really true in general about a lot of things. When you're making decisions and policy at the city level, that there's going to be people on both sides of the issue, and some of them are going to be happy, and some of them are going to be very unhappy. But you really have to take a step back and say what's really best for the city overall, not just for one segment or another segment. It's really what is going to be best for everyone. And, long term, you have to really take a long-term vision. It's not just, today, right now, here and now, but 5 years from now, 10 years from now, what's going to be the best decision for everyone? And that's really what I try to do, is step outside of the current immediate situation and take a longer-term view of that.
Sure. Well, do you have any regrets at all? Anything you wish that you would have done but didn't get done?
I guess I don't have any strong regrets. I think
good.
Good.
Having worked with you for 10 years, I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah. No. I think we've positioned the city in a really good place. I think when I was first elected, I feel that the city was in a good shape, but I think we've done a lot also to really position the city well. I mean, one of the things that one of my really desires to leave the city in before leaving the council was that we would leave the city in a position that we were well funded for all the things we needed to do. So, for example, when I first got on the council, I talked about with staff and the rest of the council, one of the things we should really do is make sure that we know about everything that we have as facilities, as fleet, as everything. So we have it all documented. We know when it's going to need replacement. We know when it's going to need maintenance, and so that we can really plan better. So, for example, facilities. You know that a roof is going to last 25 years roughly or so. In that, when that is coming to end, we're going to have to do something with that roof, and it's going to cost a significant amount of money. So let's just plan for that so that we have funding to do that. And staff has done a phenomenal job in documenting everything, putting everything in databases. Same with our roads. I think our roads are better than most communities, and we have funding to repair them if they need repair. And so I think we're well funded. We're AAA bond rated. I think we're just in such a good position as a city that I feel really good about leaving the city in this such a good position, that both financially and you leading the city from a city manager position, our city staff is fantastic, and I just feel like we're in such a good place.
Well, it's good to hear. Yeah, your pool example, I want to pull what you just said, your pool example, because of the long-range planning and having everything documented, thought out. When we did the pool expansion, we were able to do it at a time where much of our other debt was coming off, and even though you're correct in that was an expensive expansion, we did it without adding debt.
And without raising taxes.
Without raising taxes and raising the debt levy. Obviously, we added debt, but so much other debt was coming off. It was flat, and we do those projections 10 years in advance. And so that ties your 2 points together.
No, that's a really good point. And I think, one of the things, too, before I got on the council, our taxes were going up at a fairly high rate, and that was another impetus for me to get on the council, is to see what I could do, bring my business background, bring my technical skills to bear, and see if we could help stem the tide of that tax rate growth. And we had, early in my career as a council member, we had 3 years of zero levy increases. And everyone thought, we're gonna have to gut everything. We're gonna reduce our city services, and it's gonna really have a negative impact on the city. But quite the opposite. We really looked at using technology to improve our city services. I think we were very much a leader both in local cities, but in the state and also in the nation. And our city won Digital Cities Awards because we had innovated and used technology to reduce our costs, improve our service levels, and that really kept our taxes low for our citizens. And as you know, we remain in the lower quartile of our peers in the Twin Cities region, and I think that's really important. Eden Prairie not only is it a great place to live, but it's a great value from a perspective of city government cost versus the service levels that we deliver. I mean, look at our snow plowing, snow removal services, like we talked about earlier. I think it's first rate. I mean, last year, the only complaint I remember getting last year about our snow plowing services was someone complained because we plowed and they didn't think there was quite enough snow to plow it. And they were complaining that, well, why are we plowing when the snow isn't very deep?
Yeah. And it depends on the time of year, but yeah, that's a complaint. I told Robert that's the complaint I'm comfortable getting.
Yes, exactly. And, I think our snow removal, Robert Ellis has done a fantastic job with our crews, and we provide a service that I think is unparalleled in the region.
So, that being said, what will you miss?
I'll miss a lot of things. I'll miss the people, I think, the most. Interacting with you and the city staff and with the other council members and just all the people. I think I'll really miss that aspect of it, and being a part of, knowing what's coming in the city in terms of development and keeping on top of the pulse of the community. And it's really been enjoyable to see our community develop and grow, and having a hand at guiding that and making sure that it's done in a way that's smart and sustainable, and that's really makes us a great city.
And then, is there anything you're not going to miss? What could you do without? Is it going to be the we don't have too many late meetings, actually. You can't say late meetings, but you do have a lot of them.
Yeah, so I do have a lot of meetings, between 494 Corridor Commission, Southwest Transit, City Council, and MnDOT meetings. There's a lot of meetings, and so I think I won't miss the time that I have to invest in it. I value the time that I've invested. I think it's been a great investment, and I don't regret doing that. I just think it will give me more time to visit our kids, because none of our kids live in the state, and so having to go visit them, and now that two of them have kids, and that we have grandkids to visit, so it'll give us more time to do that as a family, and we have 13. Bev and I have 13 small businesses, so there's plenty of.
You need a 14th. You need to get off the unlucky 13. You got to add another one.
Yeah, I could.
Holy cow!
So
you're gonna be busy, but that it's an interesting point that you've missed. I can't remember many meetings that you've missed, if any, and I think that if you even think about the regular council meetings, it's twice a month every month. Sometimes in the summer it's once a month, but you build your calendar around that. So that is a commitment. Even if the meeting's only an hour or two, it's 2-3 times a month when you add your other meetings. So I'm happy to hear you're going to be able to travel more.
Yeah, we really did truly plan our life around my council responsibilities. And like you mentioned, before I got cancer, I had missed no meetings in probably 12, 13 years.
Yeah.
I had not missed a regular city council meeting. I missed one because I was in the stem cell transplant down at Mayo.
I remember that.
That was the very first meeting I had ever missed.
Yeah.
And I think I've missed 2 others.
I can only think in my...
Maybe one.
Well, I can think so it'll be the 10 years of your 16 years I will have been with you, and I just missed the meetings related to cancer. That's all I recall.
Yep. That was really it. So we've made it a priority because it is important, and I feel like, if you're not there, you're not engaged, and you're not representing, the people of Eden Prairie. And so we've taken it seriously, and Bev and I both, and so we've just committed to being there.
So what in terms of what's next, you've started answering that a little bit in 13 businesses, in addition to travel. So you are you got a lot going on.
There's a lot going on, and so we'll spend more time focusing on family, which I think is really critical to us both, and it'll give us more time to travel to see them, and then just to focus on building out our businesses. Plus, I work full time as a chief technology officer at a local company here in Eagan, Minnesota. So that's not a easy job either. There's plenty to do there.
Wow. So what, kind of wrapping up, Brad, what advice would you have to the residents of Eden Prairie that you've served so well for 16 years? What advice would you have?
Well, I would say really embrace our city. There's so much to do in our city. Really embrace it. The parks are fantastic. The schools are great. We just have so many nice amenities in Eden Prairie. I would say just embrace them, get to know them. Go to each one of our parks, learn what's at each park, what the features are at each park. I would think if you have an opportunity, go to attend a Citizens Academy. I think the Citizens Academy is just a fantastic way to learn more about what your city is. And I think if people would do that, they would really be impressed with all the things that make Eden Prairie a great place to live. And I think it's really nice that we as a city provide that. I know we're not doing it right now because of the coronavirus, but
it'll be back.
It'll come back.
Yep.
And if you have the opportunity, I would say make sure you take advantage of that. And the other thing I would say is give back by looking at serving on a board or commission. We have many boards and commissions that are comprised of really great people in the city, and you get to know a lot of fine people, and you get to know more about the city, and you get a chance to give back. And I think that's really one of the things that really impresses me most about Eden Prairie is how many people are willing to give back. There is rarely a city council meeting that we attend where we're not accepting some gift to the city, whether it's a monetary gift, whether it's a gift of services and in-kind donations, but there is hardly ever any council meetings where we're not accepting some gift, and both from businesses and our residents. And I just think, Eden Prairie has a kind of a hometown, small community feel, but it's really not a small community. 64,000, almost 65,000 people, 25,000 households, but it's really got a small town feel because people are so committed to the community and keeping it a great place to live.
Good. Well, that's well said. Thank you. I appreciate your time serving the residents of the city and working with you, and I appreciate you coming on for about a half an hour to talk. Thank you, Brad. I appreciate it.
Well, it's my pleasure, and I appreciate the opportunity to do that, Rick, and thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, and we have music that we play as an intro or outro, but if I don't know if we get the rights, Johnny, that if we could play some like Bob Seger, Ted Nugent, you don't like Kiss as much, but these are all iconic, musicians from where you were born. But if we had the rights, we'd play out what Bob Seger song like you. There's so many good Bob Seger songs, but. Just we could play so many of those on as your exit music, but I can't.
Yeah, well, see what you can do.
All right, thanks, Brad.
All right, thank you, Rick.